there were trees exploding. The trees were still burning, and then when it would get to an open spot, the tree would explode and fire would come, and then it would catch others.
Very high flame lengths, 100 feet, 200 feet up in the air. You just can't be close to those areas.
As we were heading up there, we could see that the column was laying over. As we continued to drive in, the winds really looked like they were pushing downhill toward us.
With the way the wind was blowing, where the fire was located, there was no good access.
It's pretty intense.
It was a time when California was really in a siege, a fire siege, and we were having multiple fires. Resources were running low. This particular time, we are having unseasonably warm temperatures. On top of that, we had still not come out of what was basically a decade of drought. We had 1 year that was normal, everything else was below normal types of fuel moisture and precipitation in the area. So fire activity across the region, across the nation was at higher levels than normal.
The area where the fire started was just a little bit below the timber line. It was really thick, tall manzanita that once it gets going in the right conditions, burns really hot and aggressive.
There was barely room for the engine to get through the brush as we drove up. With the fuel like that and the wind blowing out, it was one of those situations that you don't really want to be in. And by now the fire is progressing down the hill toward the homes in the sawmill tract and threatening a lot of homes there.
Just the heat and the intensity off of those kind of flame lengths, you can't get anywhere near the edge of it with any kind of equipment. Even if you're trying to put water on something, with that kind of flame lengths on it, you have to have massive amounts of water. Otherwise, the water you're spraying is going to pretty much evaporate.
We knew that there was a possibility that if fire started in that area, that we needed to be able to defend both the landscape around it, but also the communities like Alta Sierra. Previous forest supervisors, district rangers saw that and implemented projects to be able to reduce some of that stand density and also fuel loading. We needed to have a more defensible space.
What fuels treatments did around the communities is when the fire came up to those areas, it allowed it to slow down, produce less heat, and the firefighters can get in there and do more aggressive fire fighting. We've been doing fuels treatments for decades. The emphasis has been pushed harder in the last 10 years to try and protect the communities. One of the main ones we had in the French fire was the ice timber sale.
The ice timber sale was in here. It was mostly about thinning the forest, making sure that we had healthy, vigorous trees, and then reducing fuels so we had, areas that we could defend against wildfire. The French fire came up from down below. It had a high wind event, big head of steam coming out, and it was just racing up this hill. And it hit this treatment and started to slow down and lose some of its power. Some of these trees here you can see still have their needles on them. They're brown. They died because of scorch, but they didn't burn all the way up. And that's because the fire came up through a complete crown fire, hit this treatment, started to slow down, and then go down to the green. And if we look up in this direction, we can see all these green trees. This is an untreated stand up here, but it did burn through the French fire. It just, when it got to here, it lost enough energy that the fire went back down to the ground and did an underburn, which is exactly what we want in our fuels treatments, is to try and get it down on the ground and have these low flame lengths and low intensities.
I live in Alta Sierra full-time. We've been up here since 1988 and built our cabin, and it's paradise and very, very comfortable, safe place to live. But on the 18th of August, when the French fire started, a lot of us were tuned into the Shirley Meadows cam. Up on a tower up on Shirley Peak, there is a camera that's facing in that direction. So we could actually log on to that and see that there was smoke. We couldn't see the flames, but from here on the 18th, you could see the smoke over Shirley Mountain from right here where I'm standing. On the 21st, it started to come in our direction. On the 24th, it was at the bottom of our deck. We had a lot of firefighters down here trying to stop it at that point. One shift after another shift would tell us the same thing, that when we see that it's defensible, we get heartened about being able to defend the property, and that when they approach a fire like that in a rural area like this, they first make an assessment of what's defensible space, where's the best place to stop this fire. And that each one of the shifts that we interacted with would tell us, when we come to a place like this that has been cleared and we can see that the owners have taken steps to make it defensible, we know we can defend it.
When there is a wildfire and a fire response, agencies will prioritize life and property first. It was life and property. You could hear that on the radio. Life and property, life and property. If landowners are committed to doing work around their property that is fuels reduction, that assists fire personnel to be able to suppress a wildfire, that has the impact that those resources and spread out to different homes that need it as well. There is a responsibility. The more they can do on their piece of property, the better that helps. They may not have 10,000 acres or 100,000 acres to treat, but if 100 landowners treated their piece of property and they had an acre apiece, then that makes a significant impact. That would be the difference between putting resources into an area where it actually can be successful, or walking away from an area because there simply would be an inability for a fire organization to do anything at all.
Every year, we and most of our long-time and full-time residents clear up all the way to the property line and beyond, and we have to rake it. It's oak leaves and needles and a lot of things to take down to the Kern County Waste Management. I know we have to do this, and I feel better doing this. I feel like we're part of the community and we have to do it and be an example to the community to clean up our property as much as we can. So we always resigned ourselves to the fact that even though we would clean it up for our own sake and for the beauty of the mountain, fire would probably take us out.
Just because the Forest Service or any land manager reduces fuel in proximity around communities does not mean that that community is out of danger. It just gives the opportunity for fire personnel to do work that otherwise they wouldn't be able to. And I think that's important that people know that just because we do a bunch of fuels reduction, that somehow that community is 100% safe. Reducing fuels around infrastructure and communities does not completely eliminate the risk. It doesn't completely take the risk out of homeowners that choose to live out in that wildland-urban interface. Because of the last few years, we have seen fire activity where journey-level firefighters have said, never seen this activity before. It's a wake-up call for all land managers that we need to adapt and adjust to the new regime. We will continue to learn of what type of fuel treatments work, what that interval is of how often we need to treat fuels in and around, and then continue to educate homeowners of the risk associated and what they can do personally to assist fire personnel responding to the needs of whatever community that they are trying to defend.